Welcome to Turkish Cuisine. I'm your host, Janine Aloisi. The beauty of Turkish cuisine is that it evolved at the crossroads of the Far East and the Mediterranean. Turks are purist in their culinary tastes. The idea behind this is that they like to bring out the flavors of the main ingredients rather than hide them with rich sauces. This is what home-style Turkish cooking is all about, and Jennifer is going to show us some practical ways to begin.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Aydin, and I make home-style Turkish food. Turkey is considered the crossroads between the East and the West. It is a country rich in its culture and its cuisine. But its cuisine is not a typical one as you may know it. Many of the dishes have wonderful stories and history behind them. And we're going to start with one today, ezogelin soup. Ezogelin soup is a type of red lentil soup. For our soup, you will need 5 cups of water, 1 tablespoon of butter, a chicken bouillon for flavor, 1 cup of washed red lentils, some carrots and 1 onion, which I've grated, 1 tomato, 2 teaspoons of mint, paprika for garnish, a teaspoon of coriander seed, salt, pepper, 1 teaspoon of tomato paste, and 1 potato grated. So let's start off with turning on our stovetop and pouring in our washed red lentils. We're going to let this come to a boil. We could put the cover on so it comes to a boil really quick. Now in the meantime, I'm going to start off by grating our potato. Now as you can see, I've put our potato in some cold water. This keeps the potato from turning color while you're getting all your ingredients ready for cooking. The reason I grate my potatoes is because I find it's easier for when later on I put my whole soup through a blender. And that makes it easier to really puree the potatoes. So right now I'm going to shred our tomatoes. Tomato is widely used in Turkey. It's rich in vitamins and minerals, and many people love gardening. They often grow their own tomatoes at home. So we're gonna wait for our soup to boil, and we need to let it boil for about 10 minutes before we start putting any of our ingredients. Now, total cook time of the soup is at least 1 hour. The great thing about soup is it's hearty, it's mouth-watering, and it's so filling. But the best way to cook soup is slowly. Anytime you cook anything, the slower you cook it, the better the taste. So we want this to come to a boil for at least 10 minutes. You really want to see it boiling and jumping in there before we start adding any of our ingredients.
So many different dishes that I tried in Turkey and I would still like to try that I didn't get a chance to try.
There's so many fresh fruits and vegetables that are prepared in very unique ways in Turkey.
I like cacık a lot. It's with the yogurt and cucumbers, put a little salt in there, it's really good.
Imam Bayaldi was one that comes to mind. It's like somebody said, it's like the Imam fainted, and we always thought it was like, it was so good. The Imam fainted, so every time we take a bite, we'd go like this.
Food in Turkey is just spectacular.
Now we're going to reveal a wonderful part of Turkey, the East and the Southeast region, a place where history stands still and the people are very welcoming. It's also known for its wonderful kebabs, spicy food, and delicious desserts. Come with us as we see the sights this region has to offer.
Eastern Anatolia is an elemental terrain of grand vistas, hardy people, and extremes of climate. Much of its scenic beauty comes from its high plateaus and mountains. The region's average altitude is 1,500 to 2,000 meters. The steep slopes, severe winters, and poor soil make much of the land difficult for farming, although some of the valleys are surprisingly lush and yield good crops of summer wheat, barley, fruit, and nuts. Dairy cattle thrive in the humid northeast, and pastoral nomads tend herds of sheep and goats in the drier south. Summers are short and mild, winters long and frigid. Southeastern Anatolia is mostly dry, hot semi-desert with torrid summers and mild, pleasant, sunny winters. The Tigris and the Euphrates rise here and wend their way through the region, bringing fertility and bounty along their courses. Where there is water, farmers grow wheat, rice, vegetables, grapes, and melons in abundance. Besides agriculture and the livestock raised by semi-nomads, the southeastern region holds Turkey's principal petroleum reserves. Turkey's eastern and southeastern regions are at the crossroads of history. Camel caravans, pilgrims, and armies marched through on their way between Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and Africa, leaving their mark on the region's cities and towns. The traditions, architecture, and cuisines of the Neo-Hittite, Hurrian, Urartian, Persian, Hellenistic, Roman, Byzantine, Seljuk, and Ottoman civilizations have all made their mark here.
So now I'm going to check and see how our water is boiling. Now the only reason I put the cap on it is so that it comes to a boil much faster. Otherwise, the making of this soup, you don't need to cover it. Now is a great time to put in our chicken bouillon, which I love to add for flavor. In place of this, you can use chicken stock or beef bouillon, or you could use just plain water, but I just love the flavor of the bouillon. So what we're gonna do now is start skimming off the scum of the soup. Now once you've finished skimming off the scum, we're going to put in our onion, our coriander seed, and our salt. And you definitely need 1 onion. If you're making more soup, put more onion because onion is what gives it the essential flavor. But now I'm gonna put in a teaspoon of the coriander seed and my salt. You don't need too much salt because I put the bouillon, so just a tablespoon. Now originally the ezogelin soup was named after a beautiful girl in the 1900s, and her name was Ezo. She was a beautiful girl with rosy red cheeks and black hair, and many men passing through her village who would stop by for water or care really wanted her hand in marriage. So they made this soup traditionally for brides before they get married to wish them well and good fortune, and for them to get along really well with their mother-in-laws, because that's a big part of Turkish culture. Now you see as the soup is cooking that there is a little foam, but this is not scum. This is from the onion, and you want that. You really want this to get a nice boil before you put in your carrots and your potato. So it looks like it's just about done. I'm going to put in my shredded carrot. Now you could put more carrot if you want. I just used a little bit here, about a ½ cup. And we're going to use our shredded potato. Now the potato, once it hits oxygen, it does turn this pinky color. But that's okay. That doesn't mean it's gone bad or anything. That's just the will of the potato. So now you can see our soup is getting really nice and thick. You want this to boil. Remember I said this needs at least an hour of cook time. The slower you cook it, the better the flavors mesh together. We can even put in our tomato. Now you could put more tomato in if you want for color, but I'm just gonna add a little bit of tomato paste. Now once you see all your flavors are blending together nicely, this is a good time to add your mint. I'm gonna do 2 teaspoons of mint and our tomato paste. Now just a teaspoon is fine because you just want it just to give it that color. You can even smell the mint. And mint is also great for a garnish, which we're gonna do that later. But really let these flavors blend together. You wanna lower your heat and let it simmer for about an hour. So once you waited for your soup to cook for about an hour, at which point you could smell the delicious aroma coming through, we're going to turn off our stovetop, pour it in the blender. Now if you don't feel comfortable pouring it in from the pot, you can use a ladle. I'm just used to it, and I find it much faster with the pot. So we're finishing up with our soup. Now the last part of it is the garnish. Now if you didn't want to go through the garnish part, you can garnish with a piece of mint, sprinkle a little paprika. What I like to do is just saute some butter, and then we're gonna put a little bit of mint and a dash of paprika. So once you have your butter sizzling and you're letting all those flavors blend together really nicely, you could take it off and just roll it around your pot just like so. And we have our ezogelin soup, and we're just going to take a tablespoon and just throw it around. Be creative, do a little dance. Just right around the ezogelin. This is a great and delicious garnish. And this is a delicious way to garnish your beautiful ezogelin soup. Usually when people come over, if you have guests or your family, the host, who's usually the mother, will put it in a beautiful soup dish, take your ladle and fill up the bowls. Now when we come back, we're gonna start on our delicious lahmacun, which is the perfect complement for our ezogelin soup. Welcome back. Here's the moment many of you have been waiting for. Lahmacun. You've asked for it, so here it is. What is lahmacun? It is Turkish pizza, a delicious favorite found all around Turkey. You're gonna love it. What we need for our lahmacun is 1.5 pounds of ground beef, 3 finely chopped onions, half a bunch of parsley, 3 tomatoes, 2 green peppers, a teaspoon of allspice, salt and pepper to taste, and a tablespoon of tomato paste. So let's start mixing all of our ingredients together. Now I use 1.5 pounds of ground beef, but of course you can use ground lamb as well. As you may know, lamb is very popular in Turkey. Sometimes what you can do is half and half. Half ground beef, half ground lamb. So what you want to do is mix all these ingredients together. Now with these ingredients, you need to finely chop them. You know how sometimes I use the grater to get them really thin and pureed? That's not what you want for lahmacun. You want to feel it with every bite. The tomatoes, the onions, the green peppers. Like I said, in a Turkish home, we love to use the freshest produce, even some that we grow in our own backyard. So you just want to mix all these ingredients together. Now I know it looks like a lot, but everything should be a lot when you're making the lahmacun. All the vegetables. The more it is, the better. Now what I'm going to put right now is a teaspoon of allspice. Not every recipe of lahmacun has the allspice. I like allspice. I think it gives it an authentic Turkish flavor. And of course we're going to need salt, some pepper, and then a little bit of tomato paste to really ground up the mixture and get it nice and flaky. So now we're going to knead it with our hands. Just make sure your hands are clean, washed, and dried, because cleanliness is very important. And do you see the color of the mixture? Its abundance of tomato and parsley gives it just the right texture. You want to just knead the meat, make it really nice and chunky. Just make fists and pound out the air. This is a great way to knead many types of meat dishes. So this looks just about ready. I'm going to put it all together, and you could see the color of the pepper and the parsley and the onion. Now you see why I don't grate it, why I need to chop it, because you like to taste the vegetables when you're taking bites out of your lahmacun. So this is pretty much done. What we're going to do now is prepare our dough. Now it's time to make our delicious dough. It's very easy and simple. For our dough, you will need 1 cup of flour, a separate bowl of flour to help roll out your dough, some lukewarm water, corn oil, a pinch of sugar, a teaspoon of yeast, and a pinch of salt. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start making our dough. Just pour it in, 1 cup of flour, and make a little hole in the middle. Then you'll take your lukewarm water, and we use lukewarm because the lukewarm helps it rise faster. Just pour a little and start gathering, just making the dough. Pour and gather. So now we'll put in a little bit of our sugar, a teaspoon of yeast, and just a pinch of salt. And really gather that in there. So now once you see that the dough is a really nice texture, you could take your oil, pour a little bit on your hands, and this will also help get the dough off your fingers easily. See, it's just rolling up all the flour on the side, and it becomes a really great texture. Just knead it, make a ball kind of like so, put it in your bowl and take a wet dish towel, which I've prepared right here, and place it on top of your dough. This allows it to rise and stay moist without drying out. Now you need to leave this for at least an hour, up to 6 hours. The more it rises, the better it is. Now I've prepared one from the morning, right down here, and I'm gonna show you what it looks like when it's nice and ready. This is my wet dish rag, and I'm just gonna lift it, and it should be a really nice round ball, just like that. Smooth texture, a little bubbly. That's exactly the consistency that we wanted. Now it's time to start rolling out our dough, but don't forget to preheat your oven 350 degrees. Now it's time to start rolling out our dough. The first thing you always want to do is line your surface area with a lot of flour. Don't be afraid to use your flour generously because you don't want your dough to stick to your rolling pan. So we're just going to take a piece of our dough, and I like to cut it. Now a little trick I do so that all my lahmacuns are the same size is I take it and I roll it like a log. And then once I roll it, I cut them so that they're all even. Basically the size of a walnut is what you want. Just cut. And we'll take our dough, size of a walnut, start kneading it and just putting it on our flour. Take your rolling pin and start rolling. Now the best way to make the circle of the lahmacun is a nice, round, thin, crispy crust. So you have to pay attention to how you're rolling it. Now when you're making lahmacun at home, it's only possible to make 2 or 3 at one time. And if you're really hungry, then you eat 2 or 3. So sometimes it's not always convenient. So what they do in Turkey a lot of times is they'll find a bakery or lahmacun shop, and the women will prepare the stuffing and they'll give it to the bakery to cook their lahmacuns. This way they can make many at one time. And as you can see here, I've lined my pan with aluminum foil. But when you make them in the bakeries, you don't even need to line them. They have a hot oven or fırın, and they make it many at one time. So you could just take your stuffing and push it out. You want it really nice and chunky. And you want to put the stuffing as closely as you can to the outer texture. And then you're going to cook it in your oven that's preheating for about 10 to 15 minutes or until you see the mixture is cooked. So I'm just going to continue rolling and making the rest of our dough until all our lahmacun stuffing is done. And I'm going to take this one, put it in the oven and cook it while I prepare the rest of my lahmacun. Once your lahmacun is cooked for about 10 to 15 minutes, you want to prepare some side vegetables to eat along with it. Now usually when you go to a restaurant, the lahmacun is much bigger, but when you're home you usually improvise so you can make more. Now along with our lahmacun, what goes great is onions, but on top of the onions we're going to put about a tablespoon of sumac. Sumac is a delicious spice that when you mix it with onions, it's actually the perfect complement to your lahmacun. So we're gonna let the sumac just settle in. We have the parsley. Now the parsley you don't have to chop too much because they like to eat it even plain sometimes. You could wrap it in your lahmacun, eat it plain. So we'll just put it on our little serving tray right here. And also when you take your lemon, you wanna cut it downward the long way. So we'll get our lemon wedges. And also a really pretty trick I like to do is something with the radishes. Now radish is a great garnish. What I like to do is just cut off the top and slice it down the sides. Then I let it soak in water for about an hour. And then they open up and they look like a flower. So I've already prepared some from before so we could see what they look like. I have them right down here. See how they open up? Really cute. So this has been sitting for at least an hour. Put them over here. And of course, the tomato, because no lahmacun is right without a little bit of tomato. And you can already see the pretty array of colors coming along on our delicious serving platter. Now every time you go to a Turkish restaurant and you order lahmacun, some sort of platter like this is gonna come out with it. And actually these flavors go together really wonderfully. It's the perfect complement for any type of lahmacun. So this is a homemade lahmacun along with our delicious side salad arrangement of wonderful vegetables. You could even eat it like that. Delicious. You're gonna love it.
James Ruggia is a well-accomplished travel writer, and he was first introduced to Turkey in the early 80s and has remained a frequent visitor. He's also a loyal fan of Turkish food, and we had a chance to catch up with him in his favorite Turkish restaurant in New Jersey.
I work for Performance Media Group. We publish magazines for travel agents. I work on Agent at Home magazine, Cruise and Vacation Agent magazine, and on a daily website called modernagent.com. I'm the destinations editor, so I'm lucky enough to be able to travel pretty much all over the world. I write about how Americans take vacations, and what I'm always looking at from any destination, including Turkey, is how many dimensions does a vacation have? When you go to Turkey, you can have a multi-dimensional experience. Why? Because you can go to the beach, you can tour through really interesting historical destinations. There's 26 different civilizations interred in the ground in Turkey that archaeologists are exhuming. There's incredible historical artifacts to see there. There's great museums. Istanbul, as a city experience, is one of the 5 great cities of Europe. There's so much to see in Turkey. There's the mountains. You can actually ski in Turkey. There's the great beaches down in the south. There's great old ruins. There's religious travel there for people who are interested in the history of religion. The eastern part of the country at one time was, well, it's part of the Holy Land. It doesn't end at the Israeli border. It goes up into northern Turkey. The whole history of Christianity, its early history, takes place in what's now Turkey. So there's so much to recommend to Americans about Turkey that it's almost hard to say where you would begin. I think there's a huge difference between the way Turkish food is usually presented here in the United States and the way it's presented in Turkey. This restaurant, Beyti Kebab, is for me a very authentic Turkish restaurant because it's not trying to put on airs. It's very down to earth. It feels like on a Saturday night you feel like you're in Istanbul here. The thing about Turkish food in Turkey is that As somebody who's coming from another culture, Turkish food is almost like it leaves the footprints of the cultures which have influenced Turkey. As you go region by region throughout Turkey, the influence is felt by whichever country it's closest to on the border. And that's true for the food as well. So you have this great amalgam of different cultures, just like the country itself. And it's so reflected in their food. And unless I forget, I want to make sure I say, it's also delicious. Like this food right now. It's an interesting cuisine, but as I say, it also tastes great. I like these calves livers. Now, in a lot of Turkish restaurants, they call them Albanian livers. Now, I don't know where that comes from, but I don't know any Albanian restaurants. All I know is Turkish restaurants, but I get Albanian livers in Turkish restaurants, and to me, this is a really delicious thing. And by the way, I don't eat any other kind of liver except this. I don't generally like liver, but this is different. I like chopped shish. I used to go to a restaurant in Istanbul. I lived in Cihangir, and around the corner there was a chopped shish restaurant, and you could go there, and there'd be a man inside the bar who'd be sitting near a fire, a big fire that they would burn under a copper hood, and he would make chopped shish, and he'd be mopping his head because it was very dramatic, you know, very dramatic. So to me, Turkish food is, number one, it's delicious. Number two, it's healthy. And number three, it's interesting because it comes from so many different cultures have influenced its creation. I love this kind of food. It's great food.
Now it's time for my favorite part, dessert. And what we're gonna make today is baklava, world famous baklava. Start off, we'll make our butter mixture. So I have a little saucepan right here. We'll turn it on. This is very easy. All you need is half a stick of butter and about 1/3 of a cup of corn oil. And we're gonna melt that together, and we're going to use it to brush our phyllo dough. Now, phyllo dough is essential in making baklava. It's very popular and easy to find in many of the supermarkets. In Turkey, they call it yufka. Yufka is a very thin and unleavened bread. So while we're waiting for that to melt, we're going to make our mixture. Now with baklava, you can make it with walnuts or pistachio or even almonds. We're going to make walnuts today. And what I usually do is I put them in a Ziploc bag and I crush them. I just find that it's easier for me. In Turkey, back in the old days, they used to hand crush this in something like this, what's called a havan. They used to crush garlic or walnuts, everything by hand. But of course, these days, convenience is everything. And I find that this is a great way to crush all your walnuts without the big mess. So once it's crushed, we're just gonna put it in our mixing bowl, and you're gonna add in 2 tablespoons of sugar and 2 tablespoons of cinnamon, which I have right here already prepared. And our butter mixture is melting quite nicely. So you just want to mix that up. And that's really how easy it is. And in fact, once this is boiled, you can even pour a little bit on, get it really nice and creamy. So I'm going to do that right now because it's just about ready, just a little bit. Now again, there's so many different variations of baklava. You could make it your own. I love it with the cinnamon. I think it gives it just the right amount of flavor. And plus it's really easy to do. I mean, this is a great thing to make when people are coming over for dessert. And it looks very professional, even though it's so easy. So we're gonna turn that off and take our phyllo dough and line it in the pan. And you're going to just take our butter mixture, it's hot, and kind of brush it all on top of the yufka. Now see how it's hanging over my tray just a little bit? That's okay. You're just gonna fold it over inside. But make sure you get the oil on the inside first because this allows it to rise really nicely. So just fold it and then go over it again. And you're gonna keep doing this until you're about halfway through your yufka. Now what you could do is, since you folded it over on the bottom first, do the same thing on the top. But remember, make sure you oil the top first. Try not to press it down because you want it to rise and be fluffy and flaky. And don't be afraid to use that oil. Just keep, if you need more, you could always make more. So now I'm gonna fold it over here. So now we're getting to just about half of the sheet. Just going to finish putting this last one. Don't be afraid to use the butter. Butter makes it light and crispy and flaky. Okay, and now just take our walnuts, mix it up with the sugar, and be generous with it because everybody loves a little bit of walnut crunch coming out of their baklava. So now let's finish putting off the rest of our yufka. We're just gonna keep doing this until all of our yufka is done. Now when you get to the last two, instead of using the butter oil mixture, I'm gonna use plain corn oil, which I have right here. This makes sure that the top doesn't burn or turn a dark brown, because the color that you want is a golden brown. And this coats it just nicely enough to cook but get it that golden color. So I'm gonna do the last two with the plain corn oil, and then I'm gonna show you how to cut it. Now you could cut it many different ways. You could cut it just normal, straight across, but I like to cut it in like a diamond shape. Like punch the phyllo and cut across. Make sure you hit your knife all the way down to the bottom. And you know, this is home cooking, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Now while you're cutting, this is a great time to make sure that your oven is preheating to 350 degrees. This cooks about 15 to 20 minutes. But of course, many ovens vary, so just keep checking it. Once you see it turning that flaky golden brown, then you know it's ready. And then we'll make our syrup, and we'll pour our delicious syrup over the baklava. Now baklava is best at room temperature. You don't want to put it in the fridge because it's going to get all syrupy and soggy. I can't stress that enough. Room temperature for baklava is fine. So once you see you're getting to the end of cutting your baklava, this is how it's supposed to look. See what I mean about the diamond shape? Just makes it look really pretty, almost restaurant style. Now I'm going to put it in the oven and let it bake.
The Dervish is a restaurant located in the heart of the lively theater district in New York City. It's known for its ample portions of authentic Turkish food served by a friendly staff. And you'll also enjoy the ambiance, which is a peaceful refuge to the hustle and bustle of the neighborhood. Our crew had a chance to get the grand tour. Let's go see what they experienced.
Since Dervish restaurant is located in one of world's most traveled destinations, we also take the responsibility of Turkish hospitality, showing Turkish hospitality, of course. It's like being an ambassador of Turkey. It's not just about the food, our presentation, what we are about. When people have questions about Turkey, where Turkey is located, some people may not know. We really would like to present ourselves as good Turkish ambassadors.
I like the food very much. It's very. I come here often. I work just around the corner, and I like the I don't think there are enough Turkish restaurants in New York. There are I live in Chelsea, and there are very few there. And I don't know why that is, because I'm sure they would be successful if they opened up. But yeah, I think it's a great cuisine. In fact, I heard that there was a survey of chefs, the top 100 chefs in the world, and they asked them to name the top 3 cuisines. And when the results of the survey came in, French was 3rd, Chinese was 2nd, and Turkish food was the #1 cuisine according to these top chefs. That's what I heard that. So.
Our goal is to represent Turkish food to its highest quality. Meaning, if we are preparing a dish, it should either taste just the way it would taste in its origin, from back Turkey, or we should not present that dish at all. That is our goal.
This is an appetizer. This is an eggplant salad. It's very good. I can always tell, I always judge a Turkish restaurant on their eggplant and how smoky it is. And because bad eggplant is terrible eggplant. Good eggplant is an art. And so it's just the right amount of smokiness, the right consistency. Anybody can make hummus, in my mind, but eggplant, that is hard.
I really enjoy it. I really enjoy it because it feels like it's healthy, that it's cooked, it's not fried, and well, we really like it.
Spices, again, I like lots of garlic, which some of the dishes have, and I like the okra a lot as well. And the beans, pretty much everything. I haven't had anything that I haven't liked here or just in general. So.
The food is always excellent. The service is excellent. The presentation is excellent. I bring everybody that comes into New York to this restaurant.
So basically what I'm trying to say is the kinds of salad that we serve are for the people who want to live healthy and who want to look beautiful. I mean it.
So once our baklava has been cooking for 15 minutes and is almost done, you want to start preparing your syrup. So we're going to turn on our stovetop, and our syrup is really easy. All you need is 1 cup of water, 1 cup of granulated sugar, and a little bit of lemon juice. Now the lemon juice is essential because it keeps the sugar from forming that stickiness. It gives it a really nice consistency, but you don't want too much, just a splash. And you want to bring this to a boil. And yes, it's boiling, so we could turn it off now and let that settle. And I think our baklava is just about done, so I'm going to take it out of the oven. And this is perfect. You want it just that perfect golden brown color. You don't want to cook too much. Perfect. It smells great. You can smell the aroma of the sugar and the cinnamon. Now we're just going to wait for our syrup to cool down a little bit, and then we're going to pour it over and let it gradually soak in. Now there's no need to put this in the refrigerator. Baklava is always best at room temperature. When you put it in the refrigerator, it tends to get a little soggy. So that's just a little trick that I learned, and just spoon it over. You don't need to use all the syrup. Some people like it very syrupy, some people not too much. And just keep spooning it over until you think it's just about enough. And you're gonna give us about an hour for the syrup to really soak in. So now we've come to the end of another delicious meal. We've made the ezogelin soup, or red lentil soup, the mouth-watering lahmacun, or Turkish pizza, a delicious array of side vegetables to complement our lahmacun, and the world-famous baklava. But that's not all. Turkey is such a beautiful country. Its historical sites, its restaurants, it's really making its impact on the world. I urge you to go visit at least once in your lifetime. As we say in Turkey, come for the history, stay for the food. Until next time, goodbye, or as we say in Turkish, güle güle.
Thanks for watching Turkish Cuisine, a show that always engages your curiosity and entices the palate. I'm Janine Aloisi, and I'll see you next week.